The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Business, Inspections, Housing, and Zoning Committee will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Business, Inspection, Zoning, and Housing Committee for today, which is December 8th, 2020. I am Lisa Goodman, and I am chairing the committee today. As we begin, I'll note for the record, this meeting has remote participation from members of the City Council and City staff as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum for our meeting.
Councilmember Reich?
Present.
Gordon?
Here.
Osman?
Yep, here. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Ellison? Councilmember Ellison? Schrader?
Here.
Chair Goodman?
Present.
There are 5 members present.
We do have a quorum. The agenda for today's meeting is in front of us. I'm going to begin with the consent agenda, which includes items 7 through 23 on our agenda. On item 21, I am moving approval of the planning staff ordinance, and on item 22, I'm moving approval of the staff ordinance as well. Item number 7 are liquor license approvals, and item 8 are liquor license renewals. Item number 9 is authorizing an extension to AECOM for exclusive development rights at 800 Washington. Item 10 is a forgivable loan write-off with the Worth Cooperative Grocery Store, and item 11 is a loan write-off with Ave.N Enterprises at the Fish House. Item 12 is authorizing a modification and subordination of existing city debt for the East Village North and East Village South Apartments project. Item number 12 are loan agreement modifications for Kente Circle. Item number 14 are a number of grant agreements for community-based workforce development activities to a variety of organizations. And item 15 are our Great Streets Business Support Grant applications for almost 12.5 different organizations doing great work in the city. Item number 16 is a comp plan amendment for the Alina Transportation Hub. Item number 17 is the fall 2020 Hennepin County TOD program applications. Item 18 are the appointments to the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Housing. Item number 19 is a rezoning for North Bay Companies at 1316 7th Street Southeast. Item number 20 is a rezoning and alley vacation on behalf of Solheim at 416 to 420 Hennepin Avenue. Item 21 is a fairly large item. This is a change in our emergency shelter regulations for people in industrial districts. Item number 22 is the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Plan, and item number 23 is an amendment to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's HOPWA program supplemental funding. Is there any discussion on the consent portion of the agenda, or are there any items anyone would like to pull off for further discussion? Seeing none, I do want to note that Councilmember Ellison has been on the call, and I believe we need him to say he's here out loud.
Yeah, I'm present. Thank you.
Sorry, sir. Thank you. And then on the consent agenda, Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to speak on number 22 briefly.
Please do.
This is a big group of ordinance changes to our Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Plan. This is in response to the state and also federal regulations over that. I had been very interested in trying to strengthen it and make some amendments. I was particularly looking at, and still am, concerned about issues having to do with lighting, issues having to do with bird-safe construction, and also issues having to do with habitat. At this point, I'm not ready to move forward with any of those, and I also understand that the Planning Commission has teed this up, and they're asking for a report back on some of these issues in about 6 months. So I'm also interested in looking at that and even exploring getting at some of these maybe through some broader ordinance changes, and was going to be working on a staff direction and may still work with some of my colleagues on this committee on a staff direction to bring forward at the council, or perhaps mention it at our next POGO meeting. But I'm going to support these, but I'm going to support these with the concerns that I raised about those issues, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you and also getting more input from our city staff if some direction at this point might help them as they prepare for a response to the Planning Commission, and hopefully us as well 6 months down the road.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. I do think that this is something that could be handled on its own, and I think that's what our staff really have strong feelings about. So I respect the fact you brought it up today, and I'm happy to hear you're willing to work with Mr. Vole and others going forward. Would you be willing to move the consent agenda?
Councilmember Reich also might want to pull something. I see he's in the chat, but I am happy to do that.
Okay, so Councilmember Gordon has moved approval of the consent agenda. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not intend on pulling anything, but I'm also committed to doing that subsequent work with staff, because I know some of the issues raised, there are different avenues to address them that might even be more powerful to the ends desired, and staff has been very diligent on the whole and very willing to work on remaining issues, but making sure that's done in the appropriate forum and way. So I think we're in a good place moving forward, and appreciate the work of Mr. Vole.
On Councilmember Gordon's motion to approve the consent agenda, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Wright,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osmond,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That carries and the consent agenda is approved. We'll move into our public hearing portion of the agenda, starting with item number 1, which is a land sale at 816 23rd Avenue North. I believe Mr. Ramadan is on the call to give a presentation.
Councilmember Goodman, our Chair Goodman, members of the committee. Yes, we're here, and I don't know if we're showing up yet, but we are here. 618, as we see, been corrected to 616 23rd Avenue North. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Ramadan,
Okay.
and we can see you too.
Oh, okay, it doesn't show that I'm up. Okay. The sale of 616 23rd Avenue North is through the Minneapolis Homes policies or programs which were established by the City Council on December 11, 2015 and on February 10, 2017. The staff recommends the sale of 616 23rd Avenue North to Bernard Robinson for its appraised value of $13,800 subject to conditions. If Bernard Robinson fails to close, approve the sale to Levi Orlando Bryant for its appraised value of $13,800 subject to conditions. On December 22nd, 1995, the city acquired 618 23rd Avenue North from Hennepin County. A few years later, on February 12th, 1999, the city acquires 614 23rd Avenue North from Nova Star Mortgage. A portion of 618 23rd was sold to an adjacent property owner for additional green space to support their 5-unit development. The remaining parcels were combined to form 616 23rd Avenue North. The staff has marketed this property as part of the final Minneapolis Homes build applications that were due on August 31st, 2020, through a notification of now over 3,200 listserv recipients. There were 5 applications received. Staff recommends Bernard Robinson as the purchaser and Levi Orlando Bryant as the alternate for their planned multifamily owner occupancy projects submitted for this property. The purchaser, Bernard Robinson, proposes to invest $650,000 to construct a triplex at 616 23rd Avenue North. I got my phone dinging me. That will have 3 bedrooms and 2 baths in each unit. The alternate purchaser, he would be the owner occupant, of one of the units and lease the other 2. The alternate purchaser, Levi Orlando Bryant, proposed to invest $535,505 to construct a duplex at 616 23rd Avenue North with 3 bedrooms and 1 bath in each unit. He would live in one of the units and lease the other unit through Section 8. Notification was provided to the Hawthorne Neighborhood Council on October 1st, 2020. The neighborhood recommended Bernard Robinson as the purchaser, and a single-family house proposed by Reliable Property Maintenance and Home Service, LLC, as the alternate. However, staff felt that the proposal of Levi Orlando Bryant as an alternate purchaser because of his plans for owner occupancy and the creation of an attached affordable unit was a stronger application. The purchaser and the alternate purchaser were notified of this public hearing today. I believe one or both of them may be available, but do you have any questions of me?
Are there any questions for Mr. Ramadan on item number 1? Seeing none, I'm going to proceed to open the public hearing. I will ask Mr. Robinson, if he is on the call, if he would like to say something as the first speaker in the queue.
Hi, yes, I am on the call. Can you hear me?
We can, sir. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you, ma'am. My name is Bernard Robinson, and thank you, City Council members, for taking this time to look at this proposal and hopefully vote and accept it. My name is Bernard Robinson. Like I said, I'm a father of 4. I was married, but my wife passed away this past August. I used to live in Hawthorne when I first moved to Minneapolis. I rented from Mahmoud Khan back then, and I was really active in local politics and Minneapolis as a whole. I was the precinct chair for Hawthorne, precinct 5-8. And when Mahmoud Khan lost his renter's license, I was forced to move, and we were scared and we felt like we were going to be homeless again. And I ended up finding a house to live in Jordan, and it was the first time I've ever lived in a house as an adult, and I really liked it. I still do. I'm also now the precinct chair for Jordan. I'm still active in Minneapolis. I also work with the DFL as a state central committee member and the Ward 5 chair and a director in SD 59. But over these years, I've been working really hard. I've got a union job. I'm a union laborer, and I've been working on my credit. When I first moved to Minneapolis, my credit was really low, like low 400s, high 500s, low 400s. And, I've just been fighting for the American dream. And then the day my wife went to the hospital, 3 days before she passed away, we were house hunting, and she didn't like the houses. And, from the hospital, we did I don't know if it was a Zoom call. I think it was more like it was a face-to-face call. I'm not sure which. Oh, Facebook Messenger. And she told me that she didn't like the houses, and she said, don't buy a house. She said, I want you guys to build a house. And this is going to be my family's first time ever owning a home or having an opportunity to own a home. And, just really excited about it because it's really life-changing. And where I'm from, in the African American community that I know, I'm going to be the first one to own a home, hopefully. And we're just really excited at the opportunity to break the cycle, and maybe I can leave some kind of wealth or something to my kids. And I've had the opportunity to work with Merrill Progression Development to help me build a home, because obviously I don't know how to build a home. I've never done this before. And I'm just really excited, you guys, at the opportunity to really be even closer to the city that I love and the city that I'm active in, and to feel like I have I have a piece of the city and more skin in the game. It's the American dream, and I hope to attain it.
Thank you so much, sir. So first, I should just tell you we're very sorry for the loss of your wife, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be on the call to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing today. Thank you for being here. There are 2 other people here to speak to the public hearing. I have Michael Merrill and George Shaw. Are either of them on the line? We'll ask Mr. Merrill first if he'd like to speak, and then Mr. Shaw. Press *6 to unmute, and perhaps unmute your phone. It's okay if you don't want to speak, but you are welcome to do so now.
Sorry about that. This is Mike Merrill. Sorry about that. My phone was.
Mr. Merrill, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon. Yeah, this is Mike Merrill with M2 Progressive Development. My partner Greg Shaw, he's on the line as well. We just wanted to reiterate how excited we are to work with Bernard and helping him achieve his first home ownership opportunity. And I think Greg gonna say a little something as well.
Mr. Shaw, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, City Council members, for the opportunity. And yes, we are the developers, and we are super excited and working with Bernard Robinson and bringing home ownership, the first-time buyer, for himself and his family and realizing his dream. We are the developers that are striving to create a paradigm shift and move away from the negative connotations of affordable housing. And we're literally creating equitable housing and home ownership through our program. Our sole desire is to revitalize the community and offer housing that's not only affordable, but attainable. We also want to ensure that we empower and educate the people of the community about home ownership for families and individuals alike. And we stand by our motto, and we support Mr. Robinson in his pursuit of home ownership. And our motto is, what is enough? And our desire is to build homes that will provide the value of social equity and home equity. So when a buyer purchases a home from our company into Progression Development, we want to ensure that Bernard will receive not only keys to home ownership, but his home will have built-in equity that he can pass on the wealth to his daughter. And so we want to pay it forward. We want to share the equity pool, making our homes an affordable, equitable, and an attractive option. So we want to thank you, Bernard, for the opportunity. Thank you, City of Minneapolis and the respective council members for the opportunity. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Merrill, Mr. Robinson, for your testimony. I'm going to close the public hearing since there are no other speakers signed up, and call on Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Usually these land sales don't have so much weight, but I really appreciate Bernard sharing what he shared, and I happen to know Bernard and have gotten to know him throughout the years, and I knew about his wife passing. We talked about that, but I do want to express my condolences, and I know the entire committee's condolences, and this is a meaningful step. And when people think about how you improve a neighborhood, often people think that you have to import that improvement, that people need to come from outside the community to make it, quote unquote, a better place. And I think Bernard's an example of how we really do have what it takes within the community. Mr. Shaw said, how much is enough, or something to that effect, and Bernard showing that we have enough in our communities to make it a better place. And for anybody that knows Bernard, if you run into him, it's not uncommon for you to see him out with his daughters, with his children, and whether he's at a political event or just hanging out. And I think that's always lovely. I grew up really similarly with my parents, and so you're setting a great example for them, Bernard. And thank you for sharing on this on the committee. All that you shared is really vulnerable, really brave, and I'm happy to move approval of the sale.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison. Councilmember Ellison has moved approval. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Wright,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osman,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That carries and the motion is approved. We'll move on to item number 2, which is a land sale at 3514 Russell Avenue North. Mr. Ramadan.
3514 Russell Avenue North, Chair Goodman. Again, the sale through the Minneapolis Homes Program. On October 23rd, 2015, the city acquired this property from Hennepin County Tax Forfeited Land. The property was marketed as part of our final Minneapolis Homes build application, and we received only one application for this. The purchaser, and I should say that we're recommending the sale to Reliable Property Maintenance and Home Service, one of the other applicants for the other property. The purchaser proposes to invest $270,000 to build a single-family home with 2,000 finished square feet. The home will have 4 bedrooms and 3 baths and a detached 2-car garage to be marketed exclusively to owner occupants. Notification was provided to the Cleveland Neighborhood Association on October 7, 2020. The neighborhood did not respond. I did notify the purchaser, but I'm not sure if he's on today. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ramadan on item number 2? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing on item number 2. I will note that no one is registered, so I will just call and see if anyone happens to be on the line for item number 2. Anyone? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move approval of this item.
Approval of item number 2 has been moved. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon. Councilmember Gordon. Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye, sorry I'm late.
Thank you. There are 6 ayes.
That item is approved. We'll now move to item number 3, which is a land sale at 4354 Morgan Avenue North. Mr. Ramadan.
Okay. Again, this is a rehab house for this one through the Minneapolis Homes Program. The staff recommends the sale of 4354 Morgan Avenue North to Dwayne Etheridge for $75,000 subject to conditions. If Dwayne Etheridge fails to close, authorizing the sale to Prince Wheaton or an affiliated entity for $75,000 subject to conditions. March 31st, 2020, the city acquired this property from Northside Home LLC. This property was publicly advertised in the market on the city's website and through email notification to a list of over 3,200 developers and home buyers. Open house inspections were held on September 17th and 19th, 2020, and these are the only 2 applications we received. The purchaser, Dwayne Etheridge, proposes to invest $104,200 to purchase and rehabilitate 4354 Morgan Avenue North as a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home to live in as the owner occupant. The alternate purchaser, Prince Wheaton, proposes to invest $170,000 to purchase and rehabilitate it as a 2-bedroom and 2-bathroom home to be sold without restrictions. CPEC construction management staff reviewed the application's scopes of works to ensure that they meet the city's minimum rehabilitation standards, and the staff recommends Dwayne Etheridge as the purchaser and Prince Wheaton as the alternate purchaser. Notification was provided to the Weber-Camden Neighborhood Association on October 2nd, 2020. The neighborhood did not make a recommendation. The purchaser and the alternate purchaser were notified of the public hearing today. Are there any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Mr. Ramadan on item number 3? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on item number 3. I'll note that no one has pre-registered in the queue. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move approval of this item.
Item number 3 has been moved for approval by Councilmember Ellison. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That item has been approved. We'll move then to item number 4, which is a land sale at 2818 Girard Avenue North. Mr. Ramadan.
2818 Girard Avenue North, the staff is recommending the sale to Prince Wheaton or an affiliated entity for $75,000 subject to conditions. The city acquired this property from Hennepin County tax forfeited land on February 6, 2019. Again, it was publicly advertised to a listserv of over 3,200 folks. And Prince Wheaton was the only applicant for this property. He proposes to invest $179,000 to purchase and rehabilitate 2818 Girard Avenue North as a 2-bedroom and 2-bathroom home to be marketed without restrictions. The CPEC construction management staff reviewed his scope of work to ensure that it meets the city's minimum rehabilitation standards. We did provide notification to the Jordan Area Community Council on October 6, 2020. The neighborhood did not make a recommendation. And again, we did notify Mr. Wheaton of the public hearing held for today, but we're not sure if he was going to be able to be on this call. Are there any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Mr. Ramadan? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on number 4 and see if anyone has registered. I see no one has registered in advance to speak. Is there anyone on the call to speak for 2818 Girard Avenue North? Anyone? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move approval of this item.
Approval has been moved by Councilmember Ellison. Are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osmond,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
There are 6 ayes. That item is approved, and we'll move on to our last land sale public hearing, which is item number 5. It's a land sale at 2949 Fremont Avenue North. Mr. Ron.
Staff recommends the sale of 2949 Fremont Avenue North to Damani Bidiaco for $105,000, subject conditions. If Damani Bidiaco fails to close, to sell 2949 Fremont Avenue North to Beneficial Investments LLC or an affiliated entity for $105,000, subject conditions. On June 11, 2020, the city acquired this property from Northside Home LLC. The property was publicly advertised on the city's website, and we held open house inspections on September 17th and 19th, 2020. These were the only 2 applications we received. The purchaser, Damani Bidiaco, proposed to invest $240,602 to purchase and rehabilitate this property as a 4-bedroom and 3-bathroom home to live in as the owner occupant. The alternate purchaser, Beneficial Investments LLC, proposed to invest $193,759 to purchase and rehabilitate 2949 Fremont Avenue North as a 4-bedroom and 2-bath home to be marketed exclusively to owner occupants. CPEC Construction Management staff reviewed both applications to ensure that they meet the city's minimum rehabilitation standards. Staff is recommending, again, Damani Bidiaco as a purchaser and Beneficial Investments as the alternate purchaser. Notification was provided to the Jordan Area Community Council on October 6, 2020. Again, the neighborhood did not make a recommendation. We did invite both the alternate and the purchaser to be here for today. I'm not sure if they're available. Are there any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Mr. Ramadan on item number 5? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5. No one has pre-registered in advance. I'll ask if there's anyone here to speak to this issue. Anyone to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and call on Councilmember Ellison to make this motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today's quite the surprise getting to see people that I know purchasing homes through this program. So congratulations, Damani, and I'm happy to move approval of this item.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison. The motion in front of us is to approve. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osmond,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That item, that carries and is approved. Now we'll move to our quasi-judicial public hearing portion of the agenda, which is item number 6. I'll note that the last meeting, Ms. Dvorak did provide a report, and Karen Winkler, the appellant, and Tim Keene, her attorney, did have the opportunity to speak. I'll ask Hillary if she just wants to make a couple of comments, and we'll see if anyone is lined up to speak on this issue.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman, council members. Yes, this appeal was heard at the last Biz Committee meeting and was continued. Both the developer and the developer's architect are on the call today and have prepared statements, excuse me.
Okay. I will proceed to open the public hearing unless anyone on the committee would like Ms. Dvorak to go into more details again. Let me first see if anyone would like Ms. Dvorak to brief them on any of the issues here. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. With this type of hearing, we give the appellant the opportunity to make their case first, so I'll just double check. Invite either of you to unmute your microphone and speak with regard to this appeal. So again, I'll ask if the developer or the developer's representative is on the line to speak to the issues in front of us with regard to the appeal.
Hello, this is Alex Giese. Can folks hear me?
We can hear you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Goodman and council members for this opportunity to speak before your committee today. And again, my name is Alex Giese. I'm the project developer. And first off, I just want to apologize for the miscommunication that led to our absence from the appeal hearing a couple weeks ago. Long story short, we just had a very unfortunate scheduling miscommunication, and we weren't aware that the meeting was happening until it was already in progress, and it was too late for us to join at that point. And so my apologies for that. To be clear, we don't take city support and these types of approvals for granted, and we're incredibly grateful for the opportunity to have the agenda item continued so we could speak here today. So again, I apologize for that snafu, and thank you sincerely for this opportunity. I want to begin by taking a moment to address Curran's, both the restaurant and the family. I understand that at least a part of the basis for appellant's objection and a lot of people's interest in this project has to do with an emotional connection to Curran's, which has been an institution in the Kingfield neighborhood for decades. And I have a couple of reactions to this. First of all, I agree that Curran's has been a very important part of this neighborhood, and it was sad to see the restaurant close. But to be clear, this is not the case of some greedy developer forcing a small business owner out of his livelihood. This is about a man and his family ultimately realizing a very well-deserved dream of retirement. The institution that is Curran's, in my opinion, is not about a building so much as it's about a family. It's about Dennis and Lori Curran and their children and their grandchildren. This is about Dennis waking up at 3 a.m. every morning to prep for the morning breakfast rush. And it's about the family working 18-hour days for decades, building a business, only to see it crushed during the 2008 recession, built it back up, and then again crushed this year due to the pandemic. Dennis has gone on the record stating that he ultimately made the decision to close the restaurant because it was no longer a viable business for him and for him and his family. And the opportunity to sell, the real estate for its highest and best use, which is what this project represents, is a silver lining for the current family in an otherwise very cloudy time. My second point is that Dennis is also on the record in saying that he supports this project, and as someone who's been a stakeholder and an ambassador for this neighborhood for years, nobody understands the neighborhood better than Dennis. So as a fellow business owner myself and a husband and a father, I'm very honored to have his endorsement, and I'm proud to help the Curran family realize a goal that they've worked so hard for so many years. A little bit about me. I have been active in Minneapolis real estate and business development for years. In particular, I've been very active in the Kingfield neighborhood for almost a decade, both as a business owner and a real estate developer, and specifically spent a lot of time contributing to the revitalization of the corner of 38th and Nicollet. I've spent countless hours working hard to create dozens of jobs for folks through my involvement in 5 Watt Coffee and Nighthawks Diner, where I'm an owner, and also by helping to provide affordable housing for folks by rehabilitating the apartments at that same building, where we offer very inexpensive rents in very nice units. Additionally, I've built new housing in the neighborhood. I turned a vacant lot on the 3800 block of Grand Avenue South into new multi-unit rental housing 4 or 5 years ago. And just generally through the years, I've paid very close attention to the evolution of housing policy in the city. And I very much support the city's goal of creating more density and more affordable housing options through its inclusionary zoning policy. This project at the intersection of 42nd Street and Nicollet Avenue South represents exactly what the 2040 plan is meant to accomplish. To that end, as we designed this building, we first looked to the new 2040 land use and built form guidance for this location. We spoke and worked at length with our city planner, Hillary, taking care to design a building that was consistent with city goals and policy. And as you know, The task of designing a project with new land use and built form guidance, but without a fully implemented zoning code, is not simple. In fact, it is a practical difficulty, and that's a very important term here as it relates to our variances. Yet the city has been incredibly helpful in guiding new development during this interim period for architects and developers all over the city, not just me, but all over on numerous projects. And our project and its need for variances and a conditional use permit is no different from countless others that have been approved during this interim time. With our research and the city guidance in mind, we developed a proposal for an 82-unit, 5-story building on a parcel that is guided as Corridor 6. We then went to the neighborhood, the Committee of the Whole, Councilmember Jenkins, and others, and listened carefully to their comments and concerns. And based on this important feedback, we refined our plan to improve our design and to include a small ground level retail cafe concept that will serve not just as an amenity to the building's tenants, but also to the neighborhood as a whole. We've also reduced our proposed unit count to 79 units. And that's where we stand today. Ultimately, we're proposing a project that fits squarely within the city's clearly articulated housing policy goals, which is entirely consistent with land use and built form guidance for its location, and which has been guided and supported by the City of Minneapolis Planning Department every step of the way throughout the process. So I respectfully request today that you deny the appeal before you and allow the project to move forward.
Mr. Giese, thank you. Thank you for being on the call today. I'm wondering if you could just talk a bit more about the retail component that you have added to the project. I have had a couple questions about that, and I heard you say you were doing that. Could you just speak a little bit more to that, please?
Sure. Yeah, we're still kind of working on the programming of it, but we have, you know, from the very beginning, a very important aspect of this, the building is to make sure that we have an active corner there. And so initially we had programmed our building community room for that corner right on the 42nd Nicollet intersection. And you know, as we've taken feedback and with my background, you know, as a small business owner and specifically in the coffee business, it just kind of made sense to look into programming almost call it a kiosk style cafe within that room that will be a service to, again, the building tenants, but also will have access for the neighborhood to come up and order. You know, and it'll be a limited offering, things like, you know, coffee, probably pastries, ice cream. I'm excited about potentially offering that in the summer months. And so, you know, it's not going to be a grand, you know, retail corner there, but we will have, I think, you know, something that the neighborhood will love and be active in using.
Terrific. Thank you so much for sharing that part of the plan with us. I'll see if there's any other additional speakers who would like to speak in this public hearing. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and call on Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move to deny the appeal before us, and just to kind of let my colleagues know a little bit more background. Like, this is, I think the developer talked a little bit about losing Curran's, which I think has been just a neighborhood institution, and that certainly is part of it. But I think this is also, this is a little tougher, just because this is something, you know, as we look to 2040, as we look to growing this city by 30,000 people, we've done a lot of work to be smart about that and to make sure that we're having that growth on transit nodes, by amenities such as parks. And this project hits that. You know, it's across the street from a park. It's right on Nicollet Avenue. It has a lot of things that this is where we want to see growth happen. This will still, as always, as any growth is going to be a disruption for the neighborhood, and it will take some outreach by the developer to really make sure that they are, you know, a part of the neighborhood. So I was very happy to hear the developer's outreach that he's done so far, and hope to see that continue.
On Councilmember Schrader's motion to deny the appeal, are there any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'd please ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osman,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
That item is approved. We will then move on to our discussion items, probably the biggest discussion item of the year as it pertains to housing policy is the 2020 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Award recommendations. And we've asked for the staff to give a presentation about these projects. And so I want to turn it over to Angie, I believe, who is going to lead this report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Carrie Goldberg.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good afternoon, members of the committee as well. I'm super pleased to present this year's Affordable Housing Trust Fund Award recommendations. This is one of the city's most important and successful financing programs that assists in the production of multifamily affordable housing rental units. Next slide. This year, we received a total of 18 applications requesting a total of $31 million for a budget of $15 million. Today, staff is recommending that $14.3 million be awarded for 10 projects. And in just one moment, I'm going to quickly highlight those projects for you. Next slide. This slide, we always include each year a map that depicts the locations of all 10 projects, and this just shows you how they are located throughout the city. Next slide. So first up this year, we are recommending an award to Whittier Community Housing. This project is by Common Bond Communities. This is 85 units of preservation and new construction, including 19 3-bedroom units with a HAP contract that's in place for all 85 units. Next slide. Next is Greenway Apartments by Reuter Walton. This is 79 units of mixed incomes and also a high number of 3-bedroom units with a total of 22. Next slide. Next, we have Simpson Community Shelter and Apartments. This is by Project for Pride in Living and consists of 42 supportive housing units for homelessness that will be combined with an emergency shelter facility. Next slide. Agra by Newport Partners is 175 units of mixed income housing, including 44 3-bedroom units. This project will also include a hydroponic greenhouse operation that will provide discounts for residents suffering from food insecurity. Next slide. St. Stephen's Housing by Trellis Company, similarly to Simpson, provides 44 units of supportive housing for persons suffering from homelessness and is also combined with an emergency shelter facility as well as a clinic. Next slide. Curry Commons by Wellington Management is another mixed income project. This project has 177 units, including 28 3-bedroom units and 40 project-based vouchers. Next slide. Northrop King Residential by ArtSpace is an adaptive reuse of 3 buildings that will create 81 units, including 22 3-bedroom units. Next slide. Plymouth Avenue Apartments by James Archer Matrix Development consists of 63 new senior housing units, and this project meets the senior housing policy goal in Ward 5. Next slide. 3301 Nicollet by Alliance Housing is 64 units of low barrier housing for persons experiencing homelessness, mental illness, and addictions. Next slide. And last, we have Malcolm Yards Affordable Housing by Malcolm Yards Development Partners. This project consists of 142 units of mixed use and mixed incomes in a multi-phase development. Next slide. These projects will create or preserve almost 1,000 units, and almost half of those units are for residents with incomes at 50% AMI or less. I'm going to go ahead and conclude my presentation for now and allow for questions and comments.
Are there any questions or comments for Carrie and her team on this major milestone? takes a second for people to get into queue. Thank you, Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, and I have no issues and no concerns about this. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the hard work of staff and also all our partners in the community for coming forward with these ideas. It's incredibly important that we do more as a city, and I think the residents of Minneapolis want us to do more as a city to provide housing for those who need it and make sure that everybody can have dignified housing. We couldn't do that if we didn't have staff who was doing this work, if we didn't have the funds for it, but also if we didn't have the community support and the developers in our community who were willing to do this hard work. And many of these projects take years to get done and to develop and rely on many different funding sources and strategies so that they can be successful. And I think more so than ever, they're being welcomed in the communities of our city and supported by the neighborhoods and by the residents in those areas. So that's just fantastic. And I look forward to seeing these projects completed. And even this year, I've got one in the second ward that's been funded. So that's wonderful news.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will strongly echo Councilmember Gordon's comments. At a time when there's so many challenges, not only do we see this level of production, but I think Councilmember Gordon really hit the nail on the head by saying we've got the formula to move forward and meet challenges. We have, I think, a strong formula of our own funding, but the key element of that funding is how it leverages. And of course, it wouldn't leverage the way it would without the staff, as Gordon has outlined, with putting all their skill and experience into this. And yeah, of course, we have a strong bevy of for-profit and nonprofit partners doing this development. And I think that partnership, many of these developers, we've worked on previous projects, and it's amazing to see not only the evolution of how the public is not only accepting, but now in this case, even demanding more production. We also see this evolution of the product being produced. I mean, these are really tricked out buildings for some of the most neediest populations in terms of need for housing, but they've got gardens, they've got ways to produce food, they've got energy efficiency components, and just really good design. Some of these will be the best looking buildings on the block. And so there's an evolution here in terms of capacity, but also in terms of quality that I think is quite remarkable as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Osman.
Thank you. Talking to the staff, this really excited me when they briefed me in the beginning. And, someone who has been working affordable housing, I really want to thank the staff and all the people that are behind to line up this different funding and bringing this together. This is making a difference for people's lives. For example, I like to use the second Whittier housing. I worked there 3.5 years. Those housing that 100% Section 8 project or 30% income. And they also have 4 designated units for supportive housing, which I have worked through with coordinated entry. The people that live here are wonderful residents who are hardworking, low-income families in a wonderful community. The building used to be a school, I believe a middle school, elementary school, and it needs this kind of project. It needs the rehab. It's a place that I spend time. It's a wonderful resident, wonderful project, what Common is doing. And I'm really excited to all the other projects that have been approved. And we are saying a lot with low-income families and people that rely on affordable housing. And we do need more projects, and we do need more rehab, and make sure that we are using the best way we can to keep up the buildings we have, also built in new ones, because Ward 6 needs more affordable housing, and I'm really excited. So thank you, staff, and thank you everyone for the work you have done, and I'm really looking forward more projects like this, and so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Osman. I am seeing no one else in queue. I'm going to move approval of the staff recommendation. I just want to say a few things. First, it is an enormous amount of work to put out, create criteria, put out an RFP, respond, take in all the responses, do a financial analysis of all of the responses, and come to a recommendation, especially because there were more projects recommended than what we were able to fund today. This takes up multiple staff people's work for an entire year. So this is really a culmination of a massive amount of work. I want to thank our staff for that. I am sad that none of these projects are in the ward that I represent, but I would be remiss if I didn't call out two of them. There are none that are favorites, but I do want to point out that Curry Commons, which is in the 5th Ward, right on the 7th Ward boundary, is part of the ongoing effort to bring affordable housing to the Harrison neighborhood. That's part of the Bassett Creek Area Master Plan in a neighborhood that has embraced both market rate housing and affordable. Right now on that campus, there is an office building, an art spaces project has been topped out. So it's just an incredible feat by Wellington to take this area and turn it into something really amazing. And I'm just really proud of the work that's gone on in this location. And I do want to note too, that the Northrop King project, when Jim Stanton died, his family could have easily sold that complex to the highest bidder. Everyone loves Artist Live Workspace, but instead Stanton's family sold their building to ArtSpace, knowing that ArtSpace projects would maintain affordable live and workspace in Northrop King into the future. And so we are here with this trust fund award to help them ensure long-term affordability in a building and an area which is quickly gentrifying. And I'm sure for these two stories, there are 8 others of really incredible work by neighborhoods and developers, along with the help of our professional staff to get to this point. It's a really exciting day. I know everyone on the committee is really grateful for all of the players who have participated, and I wanted to add my voice to that. Anyone else like to comment? Seeing none, then I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on item number 24.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Osmond?
Aye.
Ellison?
Aye.
Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Goodman?
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That carries and the motion is approved. Thank you to everyone. And we'll move on to item number 25, which is the preliminary reservation of our 2021 9% low-income housing tax credits, and ask Ms. Geisler if she'd give her presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chair Goodman. Hello, council members. I'm Amy Geisler with the residential finance team in CPED. And as you mentioned, I'm here today to present this year's recommendations for allocation of 9% housing tax credits within the city of Minneapolis. And as you know, the 9% housing tax credit program is a federal program administered by the IRS. It provides a reduction in federal tax liability to investors who are investing in qualified low-income rental housing. The first step in this annual allocation process is the adoption of a qualified allocation plan, or QAP, and a tax credit procedural manual. Both of those were approved by the City Council back in May. This year, the city has about $1.5 million in 9% tax credits available for allocation. We received 6 applications requesting a total of $8 million in credits. And just like for the trust fund program, the applications were reviewed and scored according to the approved QAP, and scoring results are included as an attachment to this report. This year, staff is recommending funding for 3301 Nicollet, which, as you heard in Carrie's report, is a low barrier, deeply affordable project by Alliance Housing, which will include units for people experiencing homelessness. And with the trust fund award that was just considered by the committee, this allocation will fully fund the project and enable it to proceed to construction. The staff recommendation is a little bit unusual this year in that we are recommending the second highest scoring project. The city's QAP does direct us to rank projects for funding by score, but it also directs us to evaluate projects in terms of overall financial feasibility, and most importantly, their ability to meet really critical federal tax credit program timelines. Once the city makes a 9% allocation to a project, a federal clock starts and really sets a timeline that the project has to meet in order to retain their tax credits. So the top scoring project this year is the St. Stephen's project, which I talk a little bit about in my report. It has a permanent housing component, which is the component that applied to us for 9% credits, and then also a shelter component, and both of those are contained within the same building. The shelter component is being financed separately. And given that neither component has any funding commitments to date, and shelter is in particular difficult to finance, staff had concerns that this project is not currently in a position to meet federal tax credit program timelines. But given that they were recommended for a trust fund award and score well for 9% credits, we do expect them to reapply in the future. So with that recommendation for 3301 Nicollet, that leaves about 197,000 in remaining credits for this round, which we as staff are recommending be returned to Minnesota Housing for use in the 9%, the state's 9% credit pool. And given the low scores and large credit needs of the other projects that submitted applications to us here, awarding this small amount of credits to another project would not enable any of them to proceed to full funding. So we are recommending it be returned to Minnesota Housing. And then finally, I just want to echo what was said a little bit earlier and just recognize the entire residential finance team for all of their hard work on both the tax credit and the trust fund program this year. It really takes our entire teams to make these programs successful, and I want to make sure that they are all recognized as part of these reports. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Geisler, so much for your report, and congratulations to your entire team for all of their hard work. We'll see if there are any questions or comments about this report. It is a bit unusual compared to previous years, and there might be questions. We'll see if anyone jumps into the queue. If not, I am happy to move approval of the staff recommendation, especially for this project. I think you did a good job of outlining why 3301 Nicollet is such an important project in the scheme of things. Seeing no further comments or questions, I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osmond.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That carries and the motion is approved. We'll move on to our last item then, which has to do with the built form policies for the Minneapolis 2040 ordinance. I'll note that we have a whole team of people who have spent basically their entire year working on this from home, which has to have been hard. Mr. Wittenberg and Ms. Widmeyer, Mr. Bernard and Mr. Mogush, who I know are all on the call today. And so I will turn this over to staff to give their presentation, and then I will turn it over to Councilmember Schrader. Thank you. For staff, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and committee members. My name is Joe Bernard. I'm a planning project manager in CPED, and today I'm joined by my colleagues Jason Wittenberg, Manager of Code Development, and Janelle Widmeyer, Principal City Planner. We have just a few slides to share with you today before your consideration of a package of proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance that are aimed at implementing the built form policies found in the city's comprehensive plan, Minneapolis 2040. Next slide, please. Since the adoption of Minneapolis 2040, staff has been developing new zoning regulations that are rooted in the policies found in the plan. Among those goals adopted in the plan are that by 2040, the city will eliminate disparities, increase access to housing and jobs, increase affordable housing, support complete communities, and address climate change. A main driving force behind the built form work is to create predictable outcomes in the development process that result in those goals being achieved. This means less negotiation on a project-by-project basis, a clear path to desired outcomes, and we hope that it results in fewer requests for applications like variances. It's important to note that with these changes, we are not, today, we're not reconsidering Minneapolis 2040 policies or changing the policy maps found in the plan. Next slide, please. It's also important to take note that these changes to our zoning ordinance are intended to bring consistency between our zoning regulations and the policies and maps found in Minneapolis 2040. That consistency is something that is required of us by state law. Next slide. Minneapolis 2040 guides the development of property through a series of policy statements and through 2 maps that show, first, the uses that are allowed on a given property, so commercial, residential, et cetera, we refer to that as land use. And second, the size of buildings that are allowed on a given property, height, bulk, setbacks, et cetera, we call that built form. Implementing those built form elements of Minneapolis 2040 is what the committee is tasked with considering today. These regulations include height and scale of buildings allowed in each built forms district that's found on the map that you see up here on this slide from Minneapolis 2040. For more detailed information on the history of her work, I'm going to hand things off to first Jason and then Janelle.
Thank you, Joe. Next slide, please. So the built form rezoning study is just one piece of the overall regulatory implementation of Minneapolis 2040, although it's certainly a pretty big piece. There have been 3 other zoning code amendments that have taken effect this year that are more policy driven in nature rather than more technical amendments. So the inclusionary zoning ordinance that took effect January 1st, an amendment related to drive-through facilities took effect this year. And then also, as of January 1st of this year, residential uses with up to 3 units have been allowed in zoning districts that were formerly reserved for single-family homes. The built form and critical area amendments, of course, are in progress and being considered here today. We are currently working on off-street parking and travel demand management ordinances that we will be bringing to you early next year. In the future, not in 2021, but in a subsequent year, we'll be bringing forward an additional rezoning study similar in scope to this one, similar to the built form amendment that implements the land use map in Minneapolis 2040. So focused more on uses that will be allowed in the base zoning districts, R1 through R6, the OR districts, et cetera. Next slide, please. We've had an extensive process to inform the regulations that are in front of you today. We've had a steering committee that has included council members Schrader, Gordon, and Reich. Of course, there was a planning commission public hearing that was held on November 9th. There was a significant amount of interdepartmental collaboration with Public Works, the city's sustainability office, and others. And you see here the list of steps that were taken to inform the public, respond to their questions, and accept their input. A good deal of correspondence was received from the public and other stakeholders just prior to the Planning Commission meeting and immediately after the public hearing. That feedback, I'd say, was focused on a relatively small number of issues and was somewhat evenly split between people who felt that draft regulations should be more flexible, particularly around issues like floor area allowed for duplexes and triplexes and minimum lot sizes, for example. We had a lot of feedback also from those who were concerned about the prospect of more flexibility in our regulations. Next slide, and I will hand it over to Janelle Widmeyer.
Thank you, Jason. Built form regulations include requirements for floor area ratio, height, lot sizes, yard requirements, impervious surfaces, and lot coverage. Within each built form overlay district, the regulations were drafted in accordance with the built form maps and the policy guidance that was adopted in Minneapolis 2040. In addition to these other regulations, there will also be incentives for incorporating features into a development project to ensure it goes even further towards achieving policy goals in exchange for allowing increases to floor area ratio and building height. These would apply in some, but not all districts. Generally, the regulations are somewhat more permissive, but we intend to apply them more rigidly. As Joe indicated, a major goal of these changes is to increase the level of predictability in the development process for all stakeholders. So I'll give 2 examples. The first example is the recommended structure for increasing maximum FAR. A wider range of incentive options, which are called premiums, would be available to increase floor area ratio in districts where more growth is called for. Not only are the premiums tied to the goals of the comprehensive plan, but increases would be limited to ensure the intent of the built form district is maintained. Because there is an expanded structure for allowing floor area ratio increases, we expect that there would be fewer floor area ratio variances requested and granted. So another example of how we expect the built form regulations will result in more predictable outcomes is maximum lot size requirements. Maximum lot size requirements would apply in all of the interior and corridor built form districts, and they are intended to accommodate growth, but are written in a way that acknowledges context. Next slide, please. So at the Planning Commission public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended 16 amendments to the staff recommendation, and the remainder of the slides that we have here briefly describe those 16 amendments. So for discussion and for anyone following along, we did include a numbered kind of quick guide. It's a one-page document that's attached to the CPED staff memo that can be referenced as needed. And then following that quick guide in the memo is a summary of each of the amendments in the same numbered order. Staff is happy to answer any questions regarding the Planning Commission or staff recommendations. And before I turn it back to Jason, I would just like to make a point of clarification. The version of the ordinance that is before you is the staff recommendation. It doesn't include any of the Planning Commission recommendations. Therefore, the council would need to proactively act on the CPC amendments, whether it is to accept them or not accept them. And with that, I'll turn it back to Jason.
Thank you, Janella. So as we conclude the presentation, committee members, I just want to note that we understand that the regulations that you're considering today aren't likely to be perfect. In any regulatory change of this magnitude, there are going to be things that don't work out as well as intended. For those same reasons, when the current zoning code was adopted back in 1999, a large number of amendments happened within a couple years after the code's adoption, in spite of the fact that there were extremely competent people who led that effort. So again, not everything worked quite as well as anticipated or hoped, and sometimes errors are made. So it's likely that some things that are in front of you will be revisited, just to put that out there. I also just want to note that we're not just moving on to other topics. We'll be starting education and training for both our staff and customers, ensuring that they understand these built form regulations, and that will include providing handouts and other materials that will help this transition to new rules go as smoothly as possible. So with that, we are prepared for questions and discussions with the committee.
Thank you very much to all of our planning staff who have done so much work on this. It's really kind of a monumental thing in this meeting to have so much staff work culminating at the same time. I think to make it easy, I will call on our appointee to the Planning Commission and the Zoning and Planning Chair, Councilmember Schrader. I think what he's going to do is present amendments to the staff recommendation, I believe one at a time. If I could be wrong, he could correct me, and maybe he could present he could bring up the amendment, and then staff could explain it and we can discuss it and move through it that way. I believe there's 3 in the chat. I think there's 5 amendments total. I'm not positive about that, but I will turn it over to Councilmember Schrader next.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. First off, before getting into that, I just kind of want to echo all the thanks to staff and also to my colleagues that served on the steering committee, Councilmember Reich and Councilmember Gordon. What this represents is hours of work, hours of listening to stakeholders, and hours of compromise. So I'm very excited to bring this forward, and I will. I think as the chair suggested, I'll actually see if staff can bring up kind of the proposals, and I know that I have colleagues that want to do that would like to move different ones. So I think if we could kind of have the first motion come up. All right, so this is different. I know that the first one was going to be by myself, Reich, and Gordon, and I believe Councilmember Gordon wanted to talk through that.
Sure, Councilmember Gordon, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't exactly sure if I was seeing that same motion necessarily on the screen. but that's all right. I think my comments too. So I would like to move that, and also just speak briefly about it. This is a compromise that we've worked on that brings us, I think, closer to unity between the different perspectives of staff and the Planning Commission, but also taking into account the different perspectives among members of the public. It will allow some duplexes and triplexes to have slightly larger floor area ratios, but only in exchange for getting important things that the council and community prioritize, namely affordable housing and environmentally sustainable housing. It will especially allow Minneapolis Public Housing Authority to build new duplexes with family-sized 3-bedroom units in all parts of Minneapolis. That's something that I support. I think it's something we recognize as a good thing, and it will allow more low-income families to have more good housing options and hopefully help undo our legacy of housing segregation by race and class, which is what the 2040 plan had promised. So I'm really glad that we're able to come to, I think, a really good place in this where not only the council, but I think the residents of Minneapolis will say, giving that kind of extra space, which isn't all that much space, but it's enough space to create some of these units in exchange for the affordability and sustainability benefits, will be warmly welcomed and accepted.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Councilmember Schrader, did you have anything you'd like to add, or is anyone else on the committee interested in speaking on this Amendment 1? I think that's what we'll have to call it.
Well, thank you, Chair. I'll just say I second all of the comments by Councilmember Gordon and really thank him and his staff for the work they put in on this.
Okay, further comments or questions? I'll just note I'm also very supportive of this. I think it focuses the premiums in places where our priorities are rather than a blanket increase in FAR. This is really targeted at affordable housing and sustainability, and philosophically that is something I believe in strongly, and I think this gets at that. So I will ask the clerk to call the roll on this amendment.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
That motion is adopted. We'll move on to amendment number 2. Councilmember Schrader, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, this is all fine. I think if I'll see which amendment pops up on the screen and kind of go from there.
Please do.
Ideally, it'd be number 2, but we'll see what happens.
I'm not sure if I click on it, if it puts it on the screen, so I'm waiting for the tech team to do that.
All right, thank you. I believe this, okay, let me talk to this. This is out of order, but that's not a problem. So I believe this is amendment number 3. And this is a technical fix that clarifies our code. And I think if Mr. Wittenberg could just verify that that's the case. I mean, it's more a matter of being able to talk about kind of authorizing a change in variances.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Schrader. As our staff has started to implement some of these rules for projects that will be submitted next month, it became clear to us that this specific authorized variance was going to be interpreted far more strictly than we had intended. Based on the language that we had proposed, some staff had thought that no variances were going to be allowed from any built form overlay districts, and that was most definitely not our intent. Although, as we've repeated, we intend to minimize variances, we know that we're not eradicating variances. So we've proposed some clarifying language here that makes it clear that where variances are authorized for other code provisions throughout the zoning ordinance, those same variances can be applied for from things like setbacks and floor area in the built form overlay districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Go ahead, Councilmember Schrader.
Oh no, I forgot I'm not the chair, so thank you for stepping in, Chair. and I just ask for approval.
Got me. So this is a motion by Councilmember Schrader and team. It's been explained. Are there any comments or questions with regard to this? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
Thank you. Well, I guess we'll say we'd ask the staff to put up the next amendment.
All right. Well, thank you for this one. This one will take a little bit more of an explanation. So, as Councilmember Goodman mentioned, I do sit on the Planning Commission, and I really appreciate the work they've done. I think it is one of the hardest working commissions we have at the city. We really depend on their expertise, and they've made sure to make sure the 2040 implementation benefits all of our community, as much as possible. So I'm proposing these changes because it's important to remember that our staff are able to administer and enforce these built form standards. In some cases, staff had concerns about their ability to do so based on the Planning Commission's recommendations. In some cases, we'll be sticking with the staff recommendations that make sense. In others, the Planning Commission really worked to improve the city's implementation plan. So first, I'd like to highlight that the item related to the minimum lot size, number 7, will be taken up as part of a forthcoming land use rezoning study. And also I'd like to highlight that we propose we return to the original staff recommendations regarding sustainability. This is one, and I know I have many colleagues that feel the same way. We really want to do all we can to push the market to where they need to go to make sure this is a more sustainable city and that we are building our built forms reflect the reality of adapting to climate change and what we need to see as a city by conserving energy and all our sustainability motions for the next 50 to 100 years. But we also have to balance that by having this be an incentive that's actually going to get used. So that is a pretty fine balance. The original staff recommendation was informed by our sustainability staff who work with partners to do additional analysis on the feasibility of less carbon intensive buildings. And so with this analysis was completed next year, I expect we're going to use that data to revisit this provision and make sure we're being as ambitious as possible without sacrificing feasibility. So I want this to be an option that developers actually use and to make sure it's not too far out of reach. So I'm very proud of the work that I've done with my colleagues and with the Sustainability Office to make sure we're really pushing this as far as we can. And I believe the staff recommendation gets us there. So I will, for Amendment 2, as it says on there, I will be not, if you can scroll up a little bit, because I thought it had a little more instructions on there. So I'm moving to not adopt items number 2 through 8. On the attached list of City Planning Commission recommendations, and I am moving to adopt number 9 through 16, and also incorporate those numbers into the final built form ordinance.
Are there any questions with regard to Councilmember Schrader's motion? Seeing none, I'll ask if the clerk would please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
Thank you. That amendment is adopted. We'll move on to one of the 2 remaining amendments, which I believe the staff have. We'll just give them a second to pull that up. Okay, Mr. Wittenberg, did you want to explain this one?
Certainly. There are select places in the city where there are relatively abrupt transitions between Corridor 6, for example, and Interior 1 or Interior 2 zoning districts. In particular, there's a place that was identified by some constituents on Lake Street where there's a transition from Corridor 6 where one can request development up to 10 stories, and that steps down to Interior 1, our lowest intensity zoning district. We have proposed a small change here that would require an increased side yard setback where those two conditions are immediately abutting one another, and where in the more intense district, the building that's proposed is approximately 6 stories or higher, measured in feet.
Are there any questions on that amendment? I will note my name is on that amendment as I had asked staff to work on that, primarily because this is a condition that has happened in the ward that I represent. I don't know how many other wards have interior 1 next to corridor 6, but this will provide some level of buffer by a setback. Seeing no further comments, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Osmond?
Aye.
Ellison?
Aye.
Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Goodman?
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
That motion is approved, and we'll move on then to the last written amendment. Mr. Wittenberg, would you like to explain this, or do you want me to?
Let's see, I believe this is one.
This is the income averaging amendment.
Yes. In the Planning Commission's actions, they recommended an increased floor area and height increase where there was deeper affordability provided. And Councilmember Goodman has asked that we add to that Planning Commission addition to note that those would be without income averaging. And I think Councilmember Goodman, you actually understand this issue better than I do, but I have confirmed with our CPED housing staff that they have no concerns about this language being added.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. So I had suggested this because I want to be able to provide a bonus for affordability, not to be able to provide a double bonus for affordability when the developer is working within their own self-interest. So we now, because of the change in federal law, have the ability to see income averaging where we get 30% units in return for more market rate or 80% units. And that has provided some actual deeper affordability. I don't believe that developers should get an increase in density when they're already providing the affordable units. I think this could be an incentive for those who don't income average to actually create more deeper affordable units. And so this just exempts projects that are income averaging from being able to use those income averaged units to double dip. Are there questions about that amendment? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Osmond?
Aye.
Ellison?
Aye.
Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Goodman?
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
That item has been approved. So that concludes the author and the teams and other written amendments. Is there anything anyone else would like to bring forward, or any comments generally about the built form policies? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Council President Bender, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I came to listen to the discussion, and but do just want to take the moment to pause and thank all of you so much. I've served on this committee until very recently when Councilmember Osmond took my place. And this is just the culmination of so much work by planning commissioners. Being an alumna of the Planning Commission, I also know how much time our volunteers spend really just digging into the details, and their knowledge of what's happening in our city based on seeing project after project come through for approval separately is just so helpful to inform these policy changes that are in front of the committee today. I just really want to thank Councilmember Schrader for all his work and leadership, really just taking this on as a very large project following the adoption of the 2040 plan, and the 2 other council members, Gordon and Reich, who served on the committee. I think this is a big deal. This zoning code update really allows our city to take a policy approach to housing and land use. It means if a council member really wants to support affordable housing or sustainability or built form, there's a way to do so now citywide instead of trying to negotiate project by project in each ward separately across the city. So I think this sets us up with a really great starting point for those policies and values that we all share around having a city that is affordable with housing choices at every stage of life, with buildings that are sustainable, that contribute to the health and well-being of our community. And it sets the stage for future changes that allow us to adapt as a city. I think the 2040 plan has already made us more resilient as a city as we face the pandemic and the economic crisis, as we look at ways to prevent eviction, to stabilize housing, to build new shelters and creative new housing types like the tiny homes shelter that you've worked on so much, Madam Chair. So this is a really big deal. I know that today was a lot about the technical details, but I just want to thank the committee members for really digging in and just remind us all of, just how big of a deal this is and how much work went into it. As we deal with so much in our city, the work of the city continues. The staff team did an incredible job of translating policy and values into zoning detail. So thank you so much to Director Brennan and Mr. Wittenberg and all of the staff team that brought this forward as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam President. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? I'm going to go ahead and move approval of item number 26 as amended. I want to thank our staff who have been really accessible and helpful. I can't tell you how many times they have sat on Zoom calls with me explaining details to members of the public. I am really grateful. I also want to especially thank Council Members Schrader, Reich, and Gordon for taking the time to really provide your expertise and be able to get to this point. I feel fairly confident this will be unanimously approved by the City Council, and this is a very good way to move forward for a whole number of reasons. And I'm just very grateful for all of the work that everyone has put into this very large endeavor. Seeing no further comments, I would ask the clerk to call the roll on item number 26 as amended.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Aston?
Aye.
Ellison?
Aye.
Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Goodman?
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That item carries. The motion is approved. Seeing no further business before us, before we are adjourned, I really want to thank the tech team and all of the staff, everyone who attends agenda setting, and in particular, Council Member Schrader, who has been fantastic to work with. This is the last biz meeting of the 2020, and this remote situation has put a stress on everybody, but everyone has really risen to the occasion. And I really appreciate everyone working with the clerk's office and all of the different departments that work within this biz committee being so helpful and cooperative to be able to keep the work of the city continuing during this pandemic. The tech team has just been amazing. We are all incredibly grateful. So thank you to everyone who has worked really hard remotely this year. It is very much appreciated. Seeing no further business before us and without objection, we stand adjourned.